Hey guys! Tonight we're diving headfirst into a tale so ancient, so steeped in the kind of slow-burn drama that practically hums with sleepy vibes. You probably won't survive this without a few involuntary yawns. Imagine the flicker of oil lamps in a vast, echoing chamber, the air thick with the scent of dried herbs and something vaguely historic. You're lounging on plush cushions, the sounds of a lyre, or maybe just the gentle hum of your fan drifting through the quiet. We're going to untangle the unlikely friendship, the intense bond, really, between two figures from Greek mythology: Orpheus, the legendary musician whose melodies could charm the rocks, and Eurydice, his beloved nymph. Their story is less about heroic battles and more about the quiet ache of love and loss, a perfect lullaby for a restless mind. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now in the comments below. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself drifting, not through a grand cosmic expanse, but along the gentle currents of ancient Thrace, a land of rugged mountains and deep, whispering forests. It's here, in this fertile crescent of myth and legend, that our story truly begins, specifically with the birth of a boy destined to shake the very foundations of the underworld with nothing but a few plucked strings. This is Orpheus. You see, the Greeks, bless their dramatic hearts, never did anything by halves, especially not when it came to parentage. Orpheus wasn't just born, he was, according to some whispers that still echo through the academic halls, the son of the Thracian king Oeagrus, or, more sensationally, the divine offspring of Apollo himself, the sun god, patron of music and poetry. Now, if your dad is literally the god of music, you're probably going to have an edge when it comes to learning the flute in elementary school. And his mother, often said to be the muse Calliope, the very muse of epic poetry. Imagine the family gatherings. Son, have you practiced your scales? Your grandmother, Mnemosyne, is literally memory itself. She'll know if you're faking it. This divine heritage wasn't just for show. It manifested in Orpheus as an unparalleled gift for music. From the moment he could grasp a lyre, a stringed instrument, sort of like a small harp. For those of you whose musical education topped out at the kazoo, he played. And when he played, things happened. Not just pleasant melodies that made you tap your foot. Oh no. We're talking about music so profoundly moving, so utterly captivating, that it bent the very fabric of reality. You might picture him, a young man, barely out of his teens, sitting by a gurgling stream, his fingers dancing across the strings. The stream, normally a babbling brook, would quiet its flow, slowing its waters to better hear his strains. The trees, ancient and gnarled, would bend their branches, as if bowing in reverence, their leaves rustling in time with his rhythm. Even the most notoriously grumpy, emotionally stunted rocks, yes, rocks would reportedly shift, rolling closer to his feet, drawn by the sheer force of his artistry. Now, historians still argue whether the concept of musical therapy originated from tales like Orpheus's, but it's clear the ancients understood the profound power of sound. You might wonder how a guy who could charm a boulder with a ballad ever had any trouble. But life, even for a demigod-level musician, has its quirks. This wasn't just a party trick. It was a cosmic force. Wild beasts, the kind that would usually see a human as a delightful midday snack, would lie down at his feet, their predatory instincts completely overridden by the soothing vibrations. Lions would purr like house cats. Bears would lumber closer, their usually gruff snorts replaced by contented sighs. It was like nature's own personal ASMR session, but with more fur and fangs. He wasn't merely a talented amateur, he was a living, breathing, walking symphony. His early life, beyond the magical concerts for flora and fauna, was dedicated to honing this extraordinary gift. He spent his days exploring the wild, untamed beauty of Thrace, composing new melodies inspired by the wind through the pines, the rush of mountain rivers, and the calls of exotic birds. He wasn't aiming for chart-topping hits. His music was an expression of the very soul of the natural world, a primal language understood by all living things, and, apparently, a fair few inanimate ones, too. You can imagine him, a quiet, introspective young man, more at home with the rustling leaves than with the boisterous crowds of human settlements, though his fame was beginning to ripple far beyond his sylvan sanctuary. His legendary abilities weren't just a local curiosity. Word was spreading like wildfire, carried by merchants and travelers, of the young Thracian who could make stones weep and rivers pause their flow. This wasn't just a man playing music. This was music given human form, walking among mortals, quietly gathering the strings of destiny in his talented hands. As you continue your journey through the mythical landscape, you notice how Orpheus's fame wasn't merely a local phenomenon. It began to spread like wildfire across the ancient world. You can imagine the murmurs reaching distant shores, carried by the winds and the tales of seafaring merchants. Have you heard of the Thracian? They'd whisper in hushed tones, leaning in closer at bustling marketplaces in Mycenae or over flagons of watered wine in Corinth. The one whose lyre makes the wild beasts docile. His reputation grew, not through aggressive self-promotion or slick marketing campaigns. Ancient Greece wasn't exactly known for its PR firms, but through the sheer, undeniable power of his talent. He wasn't just a local prodigy. He was becoming a living legend, a name whispered with awe from the sun-drenched islands of the Aegean to the shadowy valleys of Epirus. Now, while Orpheus could soothe savage beasts and make mountains misty-eyed. He wasn't immune to the call of adventure or the allure of proving oneself among heroes. You might think a guy who spends his days serenading squirrels would be a bit of a homebody. But Orpheus actually joined one of the most famous expeditions of his time, the Voyage of the Argo, with Jason and the Argonauts. This wasn't a casual weekend fishing trip. This was the ancient Greek equivalent of assembling an Avengers team to go retrieve a shiny, golden fleece. Historians still argue whether Orpheus's presence was purely for morale or strategic, but he served a crucial role. When the crew of the Argo faced the terrifying sirens, those enchanting, bird-like women whose voices lured sailors to their rocky doom, Orpheus literally sang over them. His music was so utterly, overwhelmingly beautiful that it drowned out the sirens' deadly allure, saving the Argonauts from their watery graves. Imagine trying to concentrate on a siren song when Orpheus is basically performing a stadium rock concert right next to you. It's like trying to listen to elevator music when Freddie Mercury is belting out Bohemian Rhapsody in the next room. This wasn't just a quirky tidbit. It cemented his status among the greatest heroes of his age, demonstrating that his power wasn't just for charming woodland creatures, but for battling genuine, life-threatening dangers. He wasn't a warrior in the traditional sense. You wouldn't exactly see him swinging a sword, but his lyre was a weapon against despair, fear, and even supernatural malevolence. He played during storms to calm the waves, his melodies acting as a balm on the agitated sea, a testament to the idea that even the elements could be swayed by perfect harmony. After the thrilling, exhausting, and probably very muddy adventure of the Golden Fleece, Orpheus returned to his homeland of Thrace, his fame now solidified beyond question. He wasn't looking for further glory or more perilous quests. Instead, his heart yearned for the quiet rhythms of a more ordinary, yet profound, existence. He had seen the world, faced its dangers, and now he sought something more personal. You might picture him, a bit older now, perhaps a touch wearier from his travels, but his hands still possessed that magical touch, his soul still deeply attuned to the vibrations of the cosmos. He continued to play, of course, for the sheer joy of it, for the connection it brought him to the world around him. His melodies, if anything, grew richer, imbued with the wisdom gleaned from his epic journey. The Thracians, a famously warlike and somewhat rough-and-tumble people, held Orpheus in immense respect. They were, after all, known for their fierce independence and their love of music, even if their usual tunes were more akin to rousing battle chants than delicate lyre solos. Yet, even they would fall silent when Orpheus played, their boisterous nature hushed by the serene beauty of his art. It's a bit like getting a rowdy crowd of Vikings to sit politely through a classical concert. It takes truly exceptional talent. This widespread admiration, however, didn't inflate his ego. Orpheus remained, at heart, a humble and introspective soul, more comfortable in the company of trees and rivers than clamoring crowds. He understood that his gift was not for personal aggrandizement, but a conduit for something larger than himself, a connection to the divine harmonies of the universe. He was simply the vessel, the instrument through which the music flowed. You find yourself walking through a sun-dappled meadow, the air alive with the buzz of bees and the scent of wildflowers. It's in this idyllic setting, far from the clamor of heroic quests and the adulation of crowds, that the next chapter of Orpheus's life unfolds. It's a tale of love, a love so profound it would drive him to the very gates of the underworld. You see, amidst the whispering leaves and the gurgling streams, Orpheus met Eurydice. She wasn't a goddess, or a princess, or one of those mythical creatures with wings or scales. Eurydice was a nymph, a spirit of nature, a being as integral to the landscape as the trees and the rivers. You might picture her as something like a dryad, a guardian of the forests, her laughter echoing through the glades like the chiming of tiny bells. She was, in essence, the embodiment of the wild, untamed beauty of Thrace, a perfect match for Orpheus, whose music captured that same essence. Their meeting wasn't a dramatic, thunder and lightning affair. It was quiet, subtle, like the first notes of a melody, a gentle awakening. Perhaps Orpheus was playing his lyre in a secluded grove, the music weaving through the trees, when Eurydice, drawn by its haunting beauty, stepped into the clearing. Or perhaps they met by a sparkling stream, their eyes locking across the water, a silent understanding passing between them. The details of their first encounter are lost to the mists of time. But the result is clear: they fell deeply, irrevocably in love. It wasn't a fleeting infatuation, the kind that burns bright and fades quickly. Theirs was a love that resonated with the ancient rhythms of the earth, as enduring as the mountains, as deep as the hidden springs. You might imagine their courtship as a symphony, each moment a carefully crafted note, building towards a crescendo of mutual adoration. Orpheus would play for her, his music weaving tales of their growing affection, of the way her laughter echoed the melody of the forest, of how her eyes mirrored the starlight. Eurydice, in turn, would share the secrets of the woods with him, the hidden paths only she knew, the language of the birds, the ancient whispers of the trees. Their love wasn't just a personal affair. It seemed to harmonize with the very fabric of the world around them. When they were together, the flowers bloomed brighter, the birds sang sweeter, and even the famously stoic rocks of Thrace seemed to soften a little. It was as if their affection was a cosmic tuning fork, bringing the world into perfect alignment. Even the notoriously grumpy Thracians, known more for their war cries than their romantic ballads, were charmed by the couple. Historians still debate the precise nature of nymph-human relationships in ancient Greek culture. But it's clear that Orpheus and Eurydice's bond was seen as something sacred, a reflection of the harmony between humanity and nature. You can picture them, hand in hand, wandering through the Thracian wilderness, their love a beacon in the often harsh and unpredictable world of ancient Greece. They weren't just two individuals. They were a force of nature, a living testament to the power of love to transform and harmonize everything it touches. Their happiness was a gentle melody, a quiet counterpoint to the epic tales of heroes and monsters, a reminder that even in a world of gods and demigods, the most profound stories are often the ones that echo the simple, enduring rhythms of the human heart. As you settle deeper into the quiet hum of the narrative, you find yourself transported to the most joyous, yet subtly foreboding, day in Orpheus and Eurydice's life, their wedding. Imagine, if you will, a celebration unlike any other, set against the backdrop of the Thracian wilderness they both so loved. This wasn't a stuffy affair in a grand temple with marble columns. It was a rustic, vibrant ceremony beneath the open sky, blessed by the natural world. The forest itself seemed to participate, the ancient trees forming a leafy canopy, their branches festooned with wild flowers and soft moss. The air was thick with the scent of pine and wild honeysuckle, mingling with the sweeter fragrances of offerings laid out for the forest spirits. Orpheus, typically a reserved and contemplative figure, was radiant. His lyre, usually his constant companion, was temporarily set aside as he gazed at Eurydice, his heart overflowing with a happiness so profound it felt almost tangible. Eurydice, a vision in white linen, her hair adorned with blossoms, seemed to embody the very essence of spring. Her eyes, often reflecting the serene calm of a forest pool, now sparkled with unbridled joy. The nymphs, her sisters of the glade, gathered around, their soft laughter mingling with the gentle murmur of the nearby stream. Even the usually elusive satyrs, those mischievous half-human, half-goat creatures, reportedly made an appearance, perhaps drawn by the sheer ebullience of the occasion. Though historians still argue about their exact level of decorum at such events. However, even on a day of such unblemished happiness, ancient Greek myths, much like life itself, rarely come without a hint of shadows. The omens, those little whispers from the gods, were present, though perhaps unheeded in the glow of their love. The famous mythographer Ovid, for instance, recounts how the god Hymenaios, the deity of marriage, was present, but his torch flickered and sputtered, producing more smoke than flame. A decidedly bad sign. It's the ancient Greek equivalent of your wedding cake collapsing, or the best man accidentally setting his hair on fire during the toast. These tiny, almost imperceptible flaws in the celebratory fabric were meant to hint at the tragedy lurking just around the corner. You might think, Why couldn't they just have one nice day without divine foreshadowing? But that's the thing about Greek myths. Happiness is often a fleeting state, made all the more poignant by its inevitable contrast with sorrow. Despite these subtle portents, the wedding itself was a symphony of joy. Orpheus, of course, couldn't resist playing a few strains on his lyre. But this wasn't his usual haunting, world-stopping music. This was music filled with lightness and love, a melody that danced and soared, inviting everyone present nymphs, forest creatures, and perhaps even a stray, curious bear to join in the celebration. It was a celebration of union, of two souls intertwined, reflecting the harmony he could bring to the very elements. Imagine the rustling of leaves mimicking a gentle applause, the birds chirping a spontaneous chorus, and the sun itself seeming to shine just a little brighter. It was a truly magical moment, a snapshot of perfect bliss, before the inevitable turn of the mythical screw. The entire event was a testament to the idea that love, even in a world populated by capricious gods and monstrous beasts, held a sacred, transformative power. Orpheus and Eurydice weren't just two lovers. They were symbols of a rare and profound connection. Their union, a fleeting glimpse of paradise on earth. It was a day of vows exchanged not just between themselves, but between them and the natural world they so deeply cherished. And for a brief, shining moment, the world felt perfectly balanced, perfectly in tune with the quiet, joyful melody of their love. It was the kind of deep, abiding happiness that, even in its retelling, makes you sigh contentedly, perhaps even dozing off just a little, imagining yourself amidst those ancient, celebratory sounds. You're still basking in the gentle afterglow of the wedding, the imagined scents of wildflowers and pine lingering in the air, when the tone of our story shifts, as subtly yet inevitably as the turning of the seasons. This, my dear listener, is where the ancient Greeks, with their penchant for dramatic irony and inescapable fate, deliver the first cruel twist. You see, their happiness, so vibrant and full of promise, was destined to be tragically short-lived. Imagine Eurydice, soon after the wedding, perhaps enjoying a quiet afternoon, strolling through a sun-dappled meadow, the very same kind of idyllic landscape where she and Orpheus first met. It's a moment of peace, of quiet contemplation, far from any grand heroics or divine interventions. She might be gathering wildflowers, or simply enjoying the warmth of the sun on her skin, lost in thought about her beloved Orpheus and their shared future. This quiet, unassuming moment is shattered in an instant. According to most accounts, while walking through the tall grass, a serpent, likely a venomous viper, bit her on the heel. It wasn't a dramatic battle or a heroic struggle. It was a sudden, agonizing strike. The venom, swift and deadly, coursed through her veins, stealing her life with brutal efficiency. Think of it one moment. The vibrant essence of nature, full of life and light. The next, stillness, coldness, silence. It's the kind of random, senseless tragedy that still echoes in our own lives. A stark reminder of how fragile existence can be, even for a nymph. It's a particularly cruel twist, given to connection to the natural world. Historians still argue about the symbolic weight of the snake in this specific myth. Was it a representation of chaos, or simply an embodiment of sudden, unavoidable misfortune regardless? Its role is undeniable. The speed of it, the quiet finality, is what makes it so chilling. There was no time for Orpheus's music to soothe, no time for healing magic, no time for farewells. One moment she was there, breathing, laughing, a part of the vibrant world. The next, she was gone, her spirit already embarking on the long, chilling journey to the underworld. This immediate, irreversible loss is a cornerstone of the myth, emphasizing the brutal, unyielding nature of death in the ancient world. Orpheus, of course, was devastated. You can picture him finding her, perhaps after searching when she didn't return home, discovering her lifeless form amidst the very flowers she loved. The silence that followed her death must have been deafening to him. A man whose entire being was attuned to sound. The world, which had seemed to sing in harmony with his love, now offered only a discordant silence, a cruel, mocking void. The laughter of the nymphs would have sounded hollow, the rustling of the leaves like whispers of grief. The fates, those implacable weavers of destiny, had spun a cruel thread into the tapestry of their lives. For Orpheus, who had charmed beasts and calmed storms with his melodies, this was an enemy he could not simply serenade away. This was death, absolute and unyielding, a force beyond the reach of even his divine gift. It's a quirky tidbit of ancient Greek belief that heroes often suffered more keenly than ordinary mortals because their heightened senses and passions made both joy and sorrow more intense. For Orpheus, the depth of his love for Eurydice meant the abyss of her loss was unfathomable. You might find yourself feeling a profound sadness for him, for the abrupt end to such a beautiful, gentle beginning. This isn't the kind of over-the-top, dramatic death often found in myths. It's a quiet, personal tragedy that strikes at the heart of pure happiness. It's the sudden, jarring note in an otherwise perfect melody. A moment that stops you in your tracks and reminds you that even in the most enchanting stories, sorrow finds its way. And it's this raw, unfiltered grief that will set Orpheus on the most audacious journey imaginable. One that will redefine the boundaries between life and death. As you feel the heavy silence settle after Eurydice's sudden demise, you can almost sense the profound despair that engulfed Orpheus. This wasn't just sadness. This was a soul-deep agony, a grief so immense it threatened to consume him entirely. Imagine a musician whose entire world is sound and harmony, suddenly plunged into a void of deafening silence. His lyre, once the source of unparalleled beauty, now lay neglected, its strings mute, reflecting the silence in his heart. The melodies that once flowed effortlessly from his fingertips were choked by tears, replaced by the guttural cries of a man utterly broken. You might picture him wandering aimlessly through the very forests where he and Eurydice had shared so much joy. Every rustling leaf, every ray of sunlight filtering through the canopy, would serve as a cruel reminder of what he had lost. The world, which once sang with his music, now seemed to mock him with its continued existence. This wasn't the kind of grief that resolves itself with time and quiet reflection. This was a raw, visceral wound that refused to heal. He wept. He mourned. He cursed the fates for their arbitrary cruelty. But even in the depths of his despair, a spark, born of love and defiance, began to flicker. He couldn't accept it. How could someone so full of life, so intertwined with his very being, simply vanish? This refusal to accept the finality of death is a powerful human impulse, one that ancient Greeks often explored through myth. He wasn't a warrior seeking revenge, nor a king demanding tribute. He was a lover, driven by an unshakable bond. His love for Eurydice was so immense that it transcended the conventional boundaries of life and death. He realized that if his music could charm beasts and move mountains, perhaps, just perhaps, it could sway the unyielding rulers of the underworld themselves. It was an audacious, almost insane idea. No mortal had ever ventured into the realm of the dead and returned, at least not without divine intervention or a very specific quest sanctioned by the gods. Historians still argue about the philosophical implications of Orpheus's choice. Was it hubris, or the ultimate expression of devotion? But Orpheus wasn't thinking rationally. He was thinking with his heart. He decided, with a grim determination that chilled him to the bone, that he would descend into the underworld itself. He would brave the darkest, most terrifying realm known to mortals, a place where no living soul was meant to tread, all for one impossible goal: to bring Eurydice back. This wasn't a journey for fame or glory. It was a pilgrimage of pure, unadulterated love. He picked up his lyre once more, but this time, the notes were different. They weren't joyful or soothing. They were infused with the profound sorrow that gnawed at his soul, yet also with a desperate hope. He practiced, not for an audience of adoring fans, but for the most terrifying audience imaginable: the shades of the dead, the ferrymen of the Styx, and the formidable rulers of Hades. He honed his skill, transforming his immense grief into an even more potent form of musical expression, a sound that could pierce the veil between worlds. You can imagine the chilling beauty of these new melodies, a blend of lament and unwavering resolve, a sound that would echo through the silent, shadowy realm he was about to enter. It was a commitment so absolute, a dedication so fierce that it would define his legend forever. With his heart heavy, but his resolve ironclad, you watch Orpheus begin his descent. This isn't a casual stroll down a garden path. It's a terrifying journey into the unknown. A deliberate turning away from the sunlight and towards the cold, damp earth. The entrance to the underworld, as imagined by the ancient Greeks, wasn't some clearly marked gate with a welcome sign. Instead, it was often depicted as a dark cave, a chasm in the earth, or a shadowed grove where the light of the sun dared not penetrate. For Orpheus, it meant finding one of these fabled entrances, perhaps in the very depths of a Thracian forest, where the trees grew so thickly overhead that eternal twilight reigned. You can almost feel the air growing colder, heavier, as he ventures deeper. The sounds of the living world, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves would gradually fade, replaced by an eerie, profound silence, broken only by the drip of unseen water or the distant, mournful whisper of unseen winds. This wasn't merely a change in atmosphere. It was a shift in reality itself, moving from the vibrant realm of the living to the muted, echoing domain of the dead. The path would be dark, treacherous, perhaps winding through narrow passages and over crumbling rocks, demanding every ounce of his courage. He carried only his lyre, his most potent weapon, and his only hope. Imagine him, a lone figure, illuminated by the dim light of his own desperate hope, his fingers occasionally brushing the strings, perhaps playing a soft, tentative melody to steel his own nerves. Every step was a challenge, every shadow a potential threat. The air would grow thick with the chilling presence of the departed, though at this point, they might still be just indistinct murmurs in the periphery of his senses. The journey to the core of the underworld was a test of endurance, both physical and spiritual. He was venturing into a realm utterly alien to mortals, a place where time itself might behave differently, where hope was a foreign concept. This commitment to go where no ordinary mortal dared, purely for love, is a profound testament to his character. It wasn't about conquering, it was about pleading, about demonstrating a love so vast it defied even death. Historians still argue whether the concept of katabasis, the descent into the underworld in Greek mythology, was purely symbolic, or if it reflected actual ritual practices or beliefs about the journey of the soul. But for Orpheus, it was intensely real. He knew the risks. He knew that the very act of entering Hades might seal his own doom, transforming him into another one of the countless shades drifting through the gloom. Yet, the image of Eurydice, her laughter, her smile, spurred him onward, a flickering light in the encroaching darkness. The challenges he faced along this path weren't necessarily monstrous guardians yet. They were the psychological trials of fear, isolation, and the sheer overwhelming oppression of the realm of the dead. It's a testament to his mental fortitude, his unwavering dedication, that he didn't simply turn back, overcome by the chilling despair that permeated the air. He was a human, after all, with human fears, but his love gave him a strength that surpassed mortal limits. He kept moving, step by laborious step, deeper and deeper into the earth, heading towards the infamous rivers and guardians that marked the true boundaries of Hades. It was a journey into silence, into cold, into the very heart of sorrow, all for the chance to reclaim a fleeting moment of joy. You continue your descent with Orpheus, the air growing thick with a palpable sense of dread, the kind that settles in your bones and makes the hair on your arms stand on end. The journey through the deepest parts of the underworld is not just dark, it's a landscape of the soul, designed to strip away all hope. And then, you arrive at the first great barrier, the river Acheron, often confused with its more infamous cousin, the river Styx, which is the boundary one crosses to truly enter Hades. But Acheron is the river of woe, and it's here that Orpheus encounters the first guardian of the dead Charon, the ferryman. Imagine him a grizzled, ancient figure, his eyes like glowing embers in the gloom, his face stern and unyielding. He stands by his rickety, unassuming boat, his only purpose to ferry the souls of the deceased across the dark, murky waters to the realm of Hades. He doesn't take just anyone, though he only accepts those who have been properly buried, whose eyes have been closed with coins placed upon them as payment for his services. This ancient Greek belief that the dead needed payment for Charon is a fascinating mainstream historical fact, illustrating their meticulous preparations for the afterlife. Without that coin, a soul was condemned to wander the riverbanks forever, a truly miserable existence. Orpheus, however, is very much alive, a glaring anomaly in this procession of silent, shimmering shades. Charon, seeing a living man attempting to board his ferry, is immediately suspicious, perhaps even annoyed. You can almost hear his raspy voice cutting through the eerie silence, questioning Orpheus's audacity. What is this living flesh doing here? No mortal crosses this river without a specific decree. He's seen it all, or so he thinks. Heroes like Heracles have tried to force their way across, but Orpheus isn't relying on brute strength. This is where Orpheus's unique gift truly shines. Instead of arguing, instead of trying to bribe or fight, he simply lifts his lyre. He begins to play. And what he plays isn't a demand or a challenge. It's a song of profound, agonizing sorrow, a melody imbued with the raw, desperate grief for his lost Eurydice. It's a tune that speaks of love, of loss, of the unbearable pain of separation. A melody so pure and heartbreaking that it penetrates even the hardened heart of the ancient ferryman. You might picture Charon, initially scowling, his grip tight on his pole, gradually softening. His ancient eyes, which have witnessed countless tragedies, begin to moisten, the shades waiting on the riverbank, those spectral figures who have long forgotten the warmth of tears, reportedly wept. This ability of music to move the unmoved is a truly quirky or fringe tidbit from Greek myth. It suggests music holds a power almost equal to that of the gods, capable of bypassing the established rules of the cosmos. Historians still argue whether such stories were meant to be taken literally, or if they were allegories for the transformative power of art. But in this moment, for Orpheus, it's very real. Charon, for the first and perhaps only time, relents. His usual gruffness dissolves, replaced by a reluctant pity. He allows Orpheus to board his simple skiff, and with a heavy sigh, begins to pole his way across the dark waters. You feel the cold spray of the river as the boat glides silently across. The journey is short, but feels eternal, surrounded by the moaning, whispering shades of the dead who drift alongside, drawn by the haunting beauty of Orpheus's continuing song. It's a profound moment, a testament to the fact that even in the face of death and the unyielding rules of the underworld, the power of human emotion, channeled through art, can open doors previously thought to be sealed forever. And so, Orpheus crosses, one step closer to his beloved, but with the full realization that the toughest challenges still lie ahead. Having successfully navigated the grim waters of the Acheron, you now follow Orpheus into the very heart of the underworld, a place of perpetual twilight and hushed, spectral forms. And guarding the entrance to Hades proper, the ultimate bouncer of the afterlife, stands the most fearsome creature imaginable, Cerberus. Imagine him, if you dare, a monstrous dog. Not just one head, but 3. Sometimes even 50 or 100 in some wilder accounts. Though most myths stick to the classic triple threat. Each head snarls with razor-sharp teeth, its eyes glow with an infernal light, and its formidable tail often described as a writhing mass of serpents. He's the original "Beware of Dog" sign, multiplied by 1,000. Cerberus's job is simple and unwavering to prevent the living from entering and the dead from leaving. He is loyalty personified, albeit to the king of the underworld, Hades himself. You might hear the low, guttural growls echoing through the cavernous entrance, a sound that would curdle the blood of any ordinary mortal. For Orpheus, it's the ultimate test before reaching the throne of Hades. This isn't a challenge he can outrun or outwit with clever words. This demands something else entirely. Historically, the concept of a multi-headed guardian dog protecting the entrance to the afterlife isn't unique to Greek mythology. Similar figures appear in various ancient cultures, illustrating a widespread human need to conceptualize boundaries between life and death. But Cerberus, with his terrifying roar and insatiable appetite for stray souls, remains arguably the most iconic. As Orpheus approaches, you can feel the oppressive weight of Cerberus's presence. The air grows still. the faint whispers of the wandering souls silenced by the sheer menace emanating from the beast. Any normal person would turn tail and run, or at least attempt to appease him with a giant dog biscuit made of, well, probably not dog biscuits down here. But Orpheus isn't normal. He doesn't pull out a weapon. He simply raises his lyre, his calloused fingers already finding the strings. He begins to play. And the music he conjures is unlike anything Cerberus, or indeed anyone in the underworld, has ever heard. It's not a battle hymn, nor a frantic plea. Instead, it's a melody of such exquisite, profound beauty, so utterly mesmerizing, that it begins to weave itself around the very essence of the monstrous hound. The notes are soothing, hypnotic, infused with a sorrow so deep it resonates with the ancient, mournful silence of Hades, yet also with a gentle, irresistible comfort. You watch as the snarls from Cerberus's three heads slowly subside. His glowing eyes, initially fixed on Orpheus with predatory intensity, begin to soften, then droop. The furious thrashing of his serpent tail stills. One by one, his massive heads lower, their eyelids growing heavy. The overwhelming power of Orpheus's music doesn't fight Cerberus. It simply overwhelms his senses, lulling him into an uncharacteristic, profound slumber. It's a quirky tidbit to think that the guardian of Hades could be put to sleep by a lullaby, but it perfectly illustrates the unique, non-violent nature of Orpheus's heroic power. Historians still argue about the philosophical implications of this moment. Does music truly represent a primal force capable of taming chaos? Or is it a metaphor for the calming effect of art on even the most savage emotions? And so, as the enormous, multi-headed beast slumps to the ground, snoring loudly enough to shake the very foundations of the underworld, Orpheus slips past him, unharmed. He has passed another impossible barrier, not through brute force, but through the sheer, undeniable power of his artistry and the raw emotion of his love. He is now truly within the inner sanctum of Hades, facing the chilling prospect of appealing directly to its formidable rulers. You can almost feel the faint glimmer of hope strengthening within him, pushing him onward into the deeper shadows. You stand with Orpheus now, deep within the silent, echoing halls of the underworld. The air here is heavy, thick with the weight of countless departed souls, a profound stillness that chills you to the bone. After navigating the Acheron and lulling Cerberus to sleep, he has arrived at the ultimate destination, the throne room of Hades and Persephone, the formidable rulers of the realm of the dead. This is the heart of the underworld, a place of immense power and chilling majesty. Imagine the scene: a vast, somber chamber, carved from dark, polished stone, perhaps basalt or obsidian, reflecting the dim, ethereal glow that constitutes light in this realm. In the center, or perhaps at the far end, sit Hades and Persephone on thrones fashioned from dark, imposing materials. Hades, the stern and unyielding king, god of the dead and lord of wealth from the earth's bounty, would be a figure of solemn authority, his face grim, his gaze piercing. Persephone, his queen, though initially a goddess of spring, now carries the somber air of her domain, beautiful yet shadowed by her time in the underworld. Surrounding them would be the myriad shades of the dead, spectral figures of heroes and ordinary mortals, perhaps even some of the more minor deities or daemons of the underworld, all silent, all waiting, all observing this unprecedented intrusion by a living mortal. It's a truly awe-inspiring, terrifying spectacle. No living being had ever dared to approach these deities with such a personal plea. You might think of it as facing the most unyielding, powerful monarchs imaginable, with absolutely no leverage except your sheer audacity. Orpheus, however, is not intimidated. His love for Eurydice has stripped away all fear, replacing it with an almost divine courage. He steps forward, his lyre clutched in his hands, his eyes fixed on the royal couple. This is the moment of truth, the ultimate test of his unique, non-violent power. He knows that brute force, cunning, or even logical argument will do him no good here. He has only his music. He lifts his lyre and begins to play. And what pours forth is not merely a song, it is a tapestry of emotion, woven with every thread of his agonizing grief, his undying love, and his desperate hope. He sings of Eurydice, of their brief, beautiful life together, of the unfairness of her sudden death. He sings of the unbearable void she left in his soul, of the silent world he now inhabits without her laughter, without her presence. His melodies are so heart-wrenching, so infused with the pure, unadulterated essence of sorrow, that they resonate through the very stones of the underworld. The effect is immediate and profound. The whispering shades of the dead, who had long forgotten the pangs of earthly emotion, begin to weep silently, their spectral forms shimmering with long-lost tears. Even the Furies, those terrifying goddesses of vengeance whose hearts were said to be made of stone, reportedly shed tears of blood, a truly quirky or fringe tidbit demonstrating the unparalleled power of his music. Hades, usually depicted as utterly impassive, finds his stern features softening, a flicker of something akin to pity crossing his face. Persephone, who spent a portion of every year in this grim realm and understood the ache of separation, is moved to her core. This moment underscores a fascinating mainstream historical fact about ancient Greek beliefs despite their power. Even gods were sometimes swayed by profound human emotion, and particularly by the beauty of art. Historians still argue whether this reflects a humanizing tendency in later myth-making or an ancient recognition of art's transcendent power. Regardless, Orpheus's music achieved the impossible. It melted the cold, unyielding heart of Hades, forcing him to consider an act completely against the natural order of his domain, releasing a soul back to the land of the living. For a brief, suspended moment, the entire underworld held its breath, captivated by the raw, divine beauty of a mortal's love song. You can almost hear the collective gasp of the silent shades, a ripple of unseen energy, as Orpheus's final, heartbreaking note hangs in the heavy air of Hades's throne room. The music, a testament to love's enduring power, has done what no other force in the cosmos could. It has touched the heart of the unyielding king of the underworld, Hades, whose very essence is order and finality, finds himself in an unprecedented position. With a deep sigh, Hades finally speaks, his voice a low rumble that echoes through the vast chamber. He acknowledges Orpheus's plea, acknowledging the profound depth of his love and the unparalleled beauty of his song. It's a moment of immense tension, as you wait to hear if his unyielding rule will bend for this one extraordinary mortal. And then, he delivers his decision. Eurydice can return. A wave of relief, almost palpable, washes over Orpheus, so intense it makes your imagined breath catch in your throat. But, of course, with the gods, especially Hades, there's always a catch, a big one. The deal comes with a single, absolute condition. A rule as unyielding as the underworld itself. Orpheus must not look back at Eurydice as they ascend from Hades. Not until they have both reached the sunlight of the living world. Not a glance, not a quick peek, not even a casual flicker of his eyes. This peculiar condition is a classic trope in Greek mythology. A quirky or fringe tidbit that speaks to the nature of divine tests and the fragile line between the realms of life and death. It's often seen as a test of faith, a test of trust, and a reminder that even the greatest boons come with severe strictures. Historians still argue whether this reflects an ancient ritual practice where one must not look back after escaping danger, or if it simply serves as a narrative device to create dramatic tension and explain the tragic outcome. Hades, in his unyielding wisdom, explains the logic, or perhaps the inevitable consequence, of this rule. The dead, once they have passed into his domain, are not meant to return. Their transition back to life is an unnatural act, requiring a careful, specific process. To look back, to doubt, would be to break the fragile spell that allows her to follow, to re-establish her connection to the realm of the dead before she has fully re-entered the realm of the living. It would pull her back forever. You can imagine the inner turmoil for Orpheus. On one hand, ecstatic relief he has won. He will have Eurydice back. On the other, the chilling weight of the condition. To walk for what would feel like an eternity, hearing her footsteps, perhaps her soft breathing, just behind him, yet unable to turn, unable to confirm she's truly there. It's an agonizing test of trust and self-control. Hades then gives the command, and Eurydice, a pale, shimmering shade, begins to materialize behind Orpheus, her form gradually gaining definition. She is silent, a ghost in her own right, bound by the rules of this strange, conditional resurrection. Orpheus is forbidden to speak to her, to touch her, to even acknowledge her presence with a look. He must lead the way, trusting that she follows, clinging to the faith that his music and his love have truly brought her back. This mainstream historical fact of the gods making seemingly arbitrary yet fatally significant demands on mortals permeates countless myths, underscoring the precarious relationship between divine power and human destiny. And so, the deal is struck. The king of the underworld, for the first time, has been swayed by a mortal's song. Orpheus, with the greatest prize imaginable just steps behind him, must now face the most difficult journey of all the ascent back to the light, burdened by the weight of a single, terrible temptation. The clock begins ticking, not with hands and numbers, but with every silent, agonizing step. You now accompany Orpheus on the most agonizing part of his journey, the slow, arduous ascent from the underworld, with Eurydice trailing silently behind him. Imagine the path they now tread. It's no longer the grim, shadowy entrance he plunged into earlier. It's a winding, upward climb through sheer darkness. The very air seems to thicken with suspense, each step a test of his resolve. You might feel the clammy dampness of the ancient stone underfoot, the oppressive stillness broken only by the echo of his own heartbeat, and the faint, almost imperceptible sound of Eurydice's footsteps behind him. The journey feels endless. Every moment is a struggle against the overwhelming urge to glance back, to confirm that she's truly there. You can almost feel the phantom weight of that forbidden look, a constant, nagging temptation. The light, that precious, distant glimmer of the living world, seems to recede and reappear, a cruel tease as they inch their way upwards. For Orpheus, it's not just a physical climb, it's a profound psychological torment. He has to trust completely, blindly, in the word of Hades, in the silent presence he senses but cannot see. His music, his constant companion, now takes on a new role. He plays softly, not to charm any guardians, for they are past them, but as a lifeline, a silent communication with Eurydice. The melodies are hushed, haunting, a mixture of reassurance and desperate longing. Each note is a plea, a promise, a beacon guiding her through the darkness. He's essentially composing the world's most intense, high-stakes soundtrack to his own personal horror movie, where the monster is his own doubt. The deeper they get into the passageways that lead back to the surface, the more the natural world begins to assert itself. You might sense the faint scent of damp earth, then the subtle fragrance of moss, a sign of life, however distant. The darkness, while still profound, might soften just a fraction, hinting at the gradual return of light. This slow transition from absolute gloom to a muted gray is torturous, offering just enough hope to make the struggle against temptation even harder. This agonizing ascent highlights a fascinating mainstream historical fact about ancient Greek thought. The journey from death to life was always depicted as an incredibly difficult and rare occurrence, emphasizing the strict boundaries between the two realms. It wasn't a casual stroll, it was a reversal of natural law. This journey wasn't just about getting out, it was about her soul, which had fully entered the realm of the dead, being carefully, painstakingly pulled back into the land of the living. Historians still argue about the significance of the no looking back motif in various myths. Was it a test of faith, a symbolic representation of moving forward from loss, or a practical magical incantation designed to prevent a spirit from being drawn back? For Orpheus, it was simply the cruelest of burdens, an invisible thread tying him to his love, a thread that could snap with one wrong move. Every instinct would scream at him to turn, to see her, to confirm the miracle. And every fiber of his being had to resist. He was holding on to his hope and her very existence by a single, agonizing thread of self-control. You're right there with Orpheus, the tension now almost unbearable as he nears the very threshold of the living world. The journey has been an endless tunnel of darkness, punctuated by the relentless, silent battle against his own overwhelming desire. He can feel the subtle shift in the air, a faint warmth, a hint of freshness that speaks of the surface, a sliver of true light, not the dim glow of the underworld, but genuine sunlight, begins to filter through the cracks in the rock ahead. He is so close. Eurydice is so close to being truly reclaimed. Imagine the internal monologue. Just a few more steps. Don't look. Don't look. She's right there. I can almost feel her presence. Hear her faint, ghostly breathing behind me. The light. Oh, the beautiful light. We're almost out. This is the moment of peak agony, the culmination of his impossible quest, balanced precariously on a single act of faith. His heart pounds, not from exhaustion, but from sheer, desperate hope. And then, it happens. The sun's first rays, warm and vibrant, finally touch his face. He steps out, blinking, into the familiar embrace of the living world, the colors, the sounds, the very air of Thrace rushing back to his senses. He is out. He is safe. But in that instant, overwhelmed by the sudden relief, by the blinding light after so much darkness, and by the sheer, unbridled joy of believing he has succeeded, his resolve falters just as he crosses the threshold, perhaps a foot or two into the sunlight. He turns. He twists his head back, just for a moment, just a quick glance, to confirm that Eurydice is indeed behind him, to share the triumph, to see her beautiful face bathed in the glorious light of day. And in that agonizing, fatal instant, he sees her. She is there, a pale, ethereal form, her eyes perhaps even meeting his for the briefest moment, a flicker of hope and relief on her face. She has almost made it. Her foot is poised on the very edge of the underworld, her spirit slowly re-solidifying, becoming more substantial with every step towards the sun. But because Orpheus has turned, because he has broken the sacred condition set by Hades before she has fully crossed into the realm of the living, the fragile magic unravels. You witness it with chilling clarity. Her form shimmers, then begins to fade, like mist dissolving in the morning sun. Her arms might reach out, a silent, desperate gesture. But before he can even comprehend what is happening, before he can reach for her, she is gone, pulled back, irrevocably. The underworld reclaims her with a swift, silent finality, swallowing her back into the eternal darkness. Her name, a desperate whisper from Orpheus's lips, echoes back, hollow and empty. This brutal, heartbreaking moment is a cornerstone of the myth. It's a mainstream historical fact that this specific turning point, this fatal glance, is almost universally present across all retellings of the Orpheus and Eurydice myth. Historians still argue whether this reflects a deeper psychological truth about the nature of grief and letting go, or simply a dramatic narrative choice to ensure tragedy. It's a quirky tidbit that this single, small act of doubt, of looking back, could have such catastrophic consequences. But it underscores the absolute power of the gods and the strict rules of their realms. The very essence of hope, so painstakingly built, shatters into a million pieces around Orpheus. He is left alone, in the blinding sunlight, utterly bereft. The echo of her fading form burned into his memory. You stand with Orpheus, the harsh sunlight now feeling like a mockery on his skin. The silence that follows Eurydice's second, final disappearance is heavier, more profound than any silence he has ever known. It's not just the absence of sound, it's the absence of hope. The world, which had seemed to sing with the possibility of her return, now lay utterly mute, a vast, echoing tomb. This despair is deeper, more crushing than his initial grief, for it is tainted by the bitter knowledge that he was the one who broke the deal. He was the one who doomed her. The fleeting glimpse of her fading form, her silent, desperate plea, is burned into his mind, a constant, agonizing loop. He tries to return to the underworld. Of course, imagine the futile, desperate attempts. He rushes back to the chasm, the shadowed entrance, perhaps even calling out her name, his voice raw with anguish. But the path that had opened for his journey of hope is now sealed. Charon, the old ferryman, having witnessed the failure, would likely refuse him passage, grimly shaking his head. Cerberus, if he were awake, would surely bar the way with renewed ferocity. perhaps even regarding Orpheus with a knowing, sorrowful gaze. The rules of the underworld, once bent by his music, are now rigidly reasserted. Death, having given an inch, takes back a mile, and then some. Orpheus is now a man adrift, a soul perpetually haunted. He wanders the earth, his lyre now producing only mournful, dirge-like tunes. His music, once a source of universal joy and harmony, now reflects only his profound, inconsolable sorrow. He sings of loss, of regret, of the cruel twist of fate that denied him his beloved twice over. He no longer bothers to charm beasts or move trees. His melodies are a lament to the empty sky, a cry to the gods who granted and then snatched away his sole happiness. A mainstream historical fact regarding the aftermath of this event is that Orpheus is often depicted as forsaking the company of women after losing Eurydice. Some myths claim he devoted himself exclusively to Apollo, his divine father, or to the construction of young men in music. Other, more tragic, accounts suggest he withdrew entirely from society, finding solace only in the desolate wilderness. This reflects a pervasive theme in ancient Greek narratives. Profound grief often leads to radical life changes or complete withdrawal. You might find it a quirky tidbit that a man whose music could literally bring rocks to tears would be so utterly undone by personal tragedy. But it highlights the potent, often overwhelming, power of human emotion. His fame, which had once shone so brightly, now carried a melancholy shadow. People would come to hear him, not for joy, but for the shared experience of deep, abiding sorrow. For his music now plumbed the very depths of human suffering. Historians still argue whether the later emphasis on Orpheus's rejection of women was a reflection of misogynistic tendencies in some ancient societies, or simply a literary device to underscore the unique intensity of his bond with Eurydice, suggesting that no other woman could ever compare. Regardless, Orpheus was no longer the vibrant, hopeful young man who charmed the world. He was a living monument to heartbreak, a testament to the fact that even divine gifts cannot overcome the inevitable consequences of destiny. His final act, tragic as it was still to come, but his spirit was already broken, lingering in a perpetual twilight of despair. You're with Orpheus, a shadow of his former self, wandering the desolate landscapes of Thrace. His lyre, once vibrant, now merely echoes his unending grief, each note a tear shed for a love forever lost. He avoids the company of people, finding solace only in the wild, untamed places. Places where the wind whispers secrets and the ancient trees stand as silent witnesses to his sorrow. He has become a recluse, his soul tethered to the memory of Eurydice, unable to move on. His fame, however, could not be entirely extinguished, even by his despair. The women of Thrace, known for their wild, ecstatic rituals as followers of the god Dionysus, the god of wine, revelry, and madness, found Orpheus's withdrawal particularly galling. They were accustomed to Dionysian feasts, where music and dance led to ecstatic frenzy. Orpheus, in his profound sorrow, had reportedly forsworn the company of women, possibly even turning them away from his sacred musical rites, which was seen as a direct insult to their feminine practices and possibly to Dionysus himself. This opposition between Orpheus's Apollonian, ordered music and the frenzied, chaotic nature of Dionysian worship is a classic, mainstream historical fact of ancient Greek culture, often reflecting a philosophical tension. One day, while Orpheus was playing his mournful songs in a secluded grove, a band of these maenads, the female followers of Dionysus, stumbled upon him, fueled by wine, religious ecstasy, and perhaps a deep-seated resentment for his perceived slight. They launched a furious assault. They screamed. They raged. Their frenzied cries a jarring, chaotic counterpoint to the sublime sorrow of his lyre. Orpheus, with his music, had tamed beasts and moved gods, but he could not quell the fury of maddened women. His lyre, for the first time, lost its power against such unreasoning, primal chaos. You can imagine the tragic scene he plays, perhaps hoping to soothe them, to make them understand his pain. But they are beyond reason. They throw stones, sticks, anything they can find, their wild shouts drowning out his melodies. And then, tragically, they overwhelmed him. In their drunken rage, they tore him limb from limb, a truly gruesome end for a man who had brought so much beauty into the world. It's a chilling, quirky tidbit that such a powerful, peaceful hero would meet such a violent, ignominious end at the hands of women, a stark contrast to his earlier life. Historians still argue whether this myth serves as a cautionary tale against hubris, a depiction of the dangers of unbridled passion, or a reflection of underlying societal anxieties about female power. His head, still reportedly singing even after being severed from his body, floated down the Hebrus River, eventually washing ashore on the island of Lesbos. His lyre, too, found its way to Lesbos, and legend says it was later placed among the stars as the constellation Lyra, a permanent memorial to his unparalleled musical gift. His soul, finally free from earthly suffering, descended to the underworld once more. This time, however, there were no conditions, no turning back. You can almost feel the profound peace as his spirit finally reaches the Asphodel Meadows, where the shades of the dead reside. And there, waiting for him, was Eurydice. Imagine the joyful reunion, finally free from the constraints of mortal life and the cruel rules of the living. He embraces her, no longer a spectral form, but whole and present in the realm of shades. They walk together, hand in hand, through the fields of the dead, their love finally unbroken, their bond eternal in the quiet, perpetual twilight of the underworld. Their story, a tale of love, loss, and the enduring power of music, became a timeless legend, whispered through the ages, a reminder that some bonds are strong enough to defy even death. Now, as the echoes of Orpheus's final song fade into the vast silence, allow your own thoughts to drift, to soften. The myths, you see, are not just stories of gods and heroes. They are whispers from a time when the world was filled with wonder and sorrow, and the eternal dance between light and shadow. You've journeyed deep into the ancient world, touched by love and loss, and emerged again, perhaps a little wiser, certainly a little more relaxed. Let the imagery of moonlit rivers and slumbering three-headed dogs gently recede, replaced by the warmth of your covers, the rhythm of your own breath. The world outside can wait. For now, just allow yourself to sink, to float, to dream. There's nothing left to do, nothing left to worry about. Just quiet, calm, peace. Sweet dreams.